Well, it's good to be back in the saddle. I want to talk about some things that are very important at this moment. And I I think with everything going on and all of these different perspectives and so much coming to light and seeing our federal government lie and lie and lie, I think it's more important now than ever that people really understand what our government wants, what their end game is. And I'm going to show you some of that in this video. But before I even get to that, I want to take a couple of minutes and I want to show society's reaction, the people, the divide down the middle, which is 100% by design. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to know that this happened by this group of people this way 100%. Now, I do have my my opinions. I do strongly believe that this was a hit from a government, whether it be Israel or our own government. They're kind of the same at this point. But one of the things that I am becoming even more and more certain of as every hour passes is the fact that the divide and conquer strategy is at its peak. They're using their bots, their media shills. They're doing everything that they can in their power to make sure that we fight amongst each other, amongst ourselves, as opposed to taking a step back, realizing that it is not us that we should be fighting against. It is the people behind the curtain. It is the ones pulling the strings. It is the ones that are doing all of the damage that we see time and time and time again with these psychological operations and with all of these other things that they're continually using openly at their disposal. Now, I just want to run down X for a second, just so I can kind of show an example. I'll put, my 2 cents for whatever it's worth on a couple of these things, but it's very rare that there's an event that captivates not just America, but people across the world and divides them so severely and really magnifies what it is that each side views the other side as being, or what their differences are that they have a problem with, or whatever it is. It magnifies it tremendously, this divide. And that's not by accident. So this Nick Fuentes stuff, I'm probably many of you have been listening to Candace Owens' take on that. She was good friends with Charlie Kirk and has been doing some pretty good investigative reporting, the type of reporting that we used to expect from the actual media, right? Like the legacy media, ages old, used to be the ones that would hold truth to power, that would question a lot of the things that we're seeing now, but that's long and gone. They're propaganda machines, and they have been propaganda machines for a very long time. I'm sure plenty of people are familiar with the CIA and how they've long infiltrated many, if not damn near all, of the major media outlets at this point through Operation Mockingbird. And if you think that ever went away, well, I don't know what to tell you. But Nick Fuentes has done a pretty good job of reaching to these outcast, not necessarily, but a large majority of the people that follow him are like disgruntled white outcasts, or people that just can't seem to make it, that have, I mean, and rightfully so. There's a lot of people that are trying, and they've did their 4 years at some university, and they paid a lot of money, and then they graduate, but they're still working side by side to somebody flipping burger. There's a lot. So Nick Fuentes has done a good job collecting these types of people, but he also is starting to show some very interesting colors. And I think, well, let's scroll up here and just take a listen real quick.
All these people that, and what's really interesting to me, all these people that believe there's a conspiracy, if there was a conspiracy to kill Kirk, that means Trump and Vance are in on it. No ifs, ands, or buts. If Israel killed Kirk, or if some other shadowy force killed Kirk, then that means Trump and Vance are in on it. That means Tucker's in on it, because what did Tucker...
Now, would that be so hard to believe? Right? I mean, let's say that the Israel narrative is correct. Do you think Israel would carry out an operation like that without Trump, or at least some of the executive branch, knowing? I don't think so. And judging by some of the short responses, for instance, Trump was asked, how are you holding up about, the Charlie Kirk incident? And he said, I'm doing good. And then immediately starts talking about the new addition that'll be a ballroom at the White House. Immediately. Now, for somebody that's supposed to consider Charlie Kirk as a second son, or, their fourth son, whatever, that's kind of an interesting, right? But there's been a lot of that, right? Now, Nick Fuentes will continue to go on in this, and I'm not going to play the whole thing. I mean, it's only 2 minutes, so I could. But really, there's no point. If you've seen any of his material lately, then you understand that he is pushing strongly against the narrative that Israel has anything to do with this. Now, again, I don't know. I don't have any more information than the rest of you do. But I do know the modus operandi, and I can see that there would be an awful lot to gain. Especially when you have somebody that has had the youth, the upcoming youth, the conservative, the right, the Republican Party, even the far right, whatever. If he switches his stances, which by all accounts it appears that he was doing, he was starting to wake up to the fact that the second you disagree with Zionists, then you are instantly labeled an anti-Semite. And for somebody like Charlie Kirk that has spent so much of their time towing the official narrative of, Israel is our greatest ally, and really doing everything he could do to make sure that the up-and-coming youth generation is, partial to Israel. But if you have somebody like that start changing their opinions and their views, their perspectives on these types of things, then, well, that becomes extremely problematic for Israel, for the Zionist movement. You can't ask questions. But this whole thing is going in so many directions, and there's so many different things that it looks like to me are trying to be achieved through it. And you have people, I think this will really do a good job to show the true colors of the people, like Nick Fuentes here, right? Now, I like a lot of the things Nick Fuentes says. I don't trust Alex Jones at all. At all. I never have. He's always seen, well, his father was a CIA agent. That's all you really need to know. That those types of things stay in the family. You don't have a CIA father and then become the exact opposite of that shortly thereafter. No, that's hurting. That's controlled opposition. But Alex Jones, the equivalent of political flat earth believers, so he's instantly right off equating those to flat earthers, right? Saying that's how ridiculous this is. You must be a flat earther to believe it. Are now claiming Nick Fuentes works for Israel with absolutely zero evidence. This isn't the first time this idea has been floated. Anytime something gets a little too deep, it seems like Nick Fuentes, even though he, it sounds like he spews all this hate. He's such an anti-Semite, so far right. But really, when you listen to what he has to say, when there's ever a matter of importance, he runs cover for them. I've noticed this myself, and here's another example. And he was real quick to do it, almost more than Matt Walsh, who works for the Daily Wire, was doing. This is an example of a snake eating its tail. The only way to win is to not to be a snake. Truth should be our North Star. And I couldn't agree with that any bit at all more than I already do. Because we need to really focus on concrete facts and evidence. But what we also need to focus on are what the media is. You can always learn so much by the mainstream media. They really let you know what the powers that shouldn't be are up to. Now, I'm going to just start it off here real quick, but Netanyahu has been getting a lot of attention for coming out immediately after this tragedy. I don't care what side you're on, and I'm not on a side, but it's a tragedy anytime anybody, I don't care if it's my enemy. These are people, these are human beings, right? And I don't want to see somebody lose their life over their beliefs. I don't want to see people lose their life at all. Unless they're outright out there killing people. You're allowed to have whatever belief you want. You're allowed to think what you want, and you're allowed to say what you want. And when things are heated to the degree that they are now, I think it's important that we keep that especially in mind. Because it's really easy to get things like the Patriot Act passed when everybody's at a fever pitch. Let me jump right into it. So through all of this, Trump has labeled Antifa a domestic terror group. Now, this isn't the first time he tried doing that. This was already floated, I think, back in 2019. You can fact check me. It was around there. I think it was before the creation of the Domestic Terrorism Unit by the Department of Homeland Security. And at the time, on a previous channel, I was discussing how this is one of the worst things that any administration could do. Again, but it's not ever about the American people. It's about controlling the American people. It's not about your rights. And they'll take them from you as soon as they find a loophole to do it. As soon as they can get a people behind them enough to not have enough pushback. So fine, Antifa, right? So many people could be like, yeah, but that's Antifa. Like, screw them guys. You've seen them. They're acting like they do all this crazy nonsense. Like, yeah, they should. Precedent. Precedent is key. Because what is Antifa? Well, they're not an actual group. There isn't like a gang of Antifa that call themselves Antifa. It's an ideology. And if you can make a group, a domestic terror group, simply because they share an ideology, what happens when the next administration comes in on the left? And they say, conspiracy theorists are now a domestic terror group. This thing can snowball and just destroy America overnight. Let's take a quick little listen to this. As a matter of fact, I'll read it. Can Trump label Antifa a domestic terror group? Legally, there's no such thing. In the wake of the murder of conservative Charlie Kirk, top Republicans are calling for increased scrutiny of Antifa. President Trump on Wednesday night, while on a state visit to England, posted on social media that he would be designating Antifa as a major terrorist organization. It isn't an organization. These are people. You could call anybody anti-fascist. You could call anybody a conspiracy theorist. You could call anybody far-right extremist, far-left extremist. It's a very, very dangerous road to start going down. And I hope everybody on every side, I'm not left, I'm not right. I'm a realist. I'm a realist that understands that there are very powerful people with very, very powerful ideas. And they're going to do everything they can to push that. For instance, a global world order with a select group of technocratic billionaires at the top of it, pulling the strings of their political puppets, working side by side with the banksters to effectively run and control the entire world. That's not a conspiracy theory anymore. We know that is the case. So we have to be very vigilant when we see steps that lead towards that decrease your freedom, that limit your ability to actually exist freely as a human being with God-given rights, whether you believe in God or not, with natural born rights. It's not because another man sitting behind a desk somewhere granted you these privileges, this right to speak your mind. No, it's because you're a human being. And you as a human being have every right that everybody else does, and more. And never does it ever matter that another man says that you, or woman says that you can't. That it's an illusion that they have the right to do that. We all are created equal. We all are human beings. And we all have the right. And when they start designating these types of things on groups, it's only a matter of time before they fit you neatly into one of these groups that will eventually be silenced, especially if you're saying things of importance that get in the way of the agenda at hand. So we know that he's working on Antifa. What about the group behind Project 2025 urges FBI to brand transgender extremists a domestic terror threat? Do you see how fast this can get out of control? Now, again, this is coming from the mainstream media. This is what they want us thinking about, right? They select these ideas. They hope that they fester in our minds, and then we discuss them amongst one another. And the people on the left that have been receiving a lot of pushback after this Charlie Kirk stuff, they're going to be like, I mean, they see something like this, and it's only going to continue to fuel as much hate and divide as possible. That's what they're going for. But the tables always turn. Eventually, it'll be the left doing this, but if we allow them to start labeling things as domestic terror groups that are transgender extremists, I mean, they love these broad terms. Antifa, a broad term. Transgender extreme. These aren't identifying characteristics. Anything could fall under this. Well, in this case, you have to be LGBT. But Antifa You might even be on the right and you could fall under Antifa, anti-fascist. You got to be extremely careful, and you got to push back on these ideas, because the government is going to try to take as much power as they possibly can any chance they get. It wasn't a mistake that we heard Pam Bondi the other day talking about hate speech, the exact same thing that the left was talking about in the last administration. No, they kind of miscalculated and thought they had an opening and thought that they would be able to, because all of the people that were cheering on Charlie Kirk's death and things like that, they thought that they would actually have a chance to gain the support of the right to pass hate speech laws. But when they seen that the right was like, wait a minute, no way that we're going to allow you to, then they had to back up and say, well, that's not what we meant, we misspoke. Bullshit. And if you think that, you got a lot of learning to do, because that's Trump said the same thing. Did they both misspeak? It's just ridiculous, guys. And things will go back and forth, and left versus right, and so on and so forth, and they're going to continue to use an opportunity like this to make sure that we can't agree with one another. Because when we do, when we actually find the commonality, when we find humanity in one another, then we start looking at who's really behind the problems, who's really controlling the masses and setting the pieces in motion that cause the chaos. I'm going to wrap it up, guys. It's good to be back. It sucks that I had to come back this way, and I'll see you pretty soon. Much love. Peace.